Dambisa Moyo, I want to thank you for coming to the Jepson School of Leadership Studies and for speaking to our students and faculty and visitors to the school. I was struck by your use of two words in your talk today, transparency and paternalism. And I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about transparency. And what I'm wondering is just how to link the notion of transparency and the emergence of good and productive and effective leadership.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's been an absolute joy to come and visit here at the Jepson School. I think the key thing I would say, particularly with respect to transparency, it's so inextricably linked to the notion of accountability and service, which are two of the critical things which I would say are key for the most successful leaders. And I think that one of the most important reasons why transparency is so key is that very often leaders are called to do very challenging and difficult things. And I believe that there's a lot more mileage in being able to execute on hard things that people may be resistant to if a leader is viewed as more transparent. People then feel like they have more information about what exactly is being demanded of them and why it is they're being called to make allowances and exceptions. So I do think it's absolutely critical.
Thanks. And then thinking more about paternalism, there's a fine line in leadership studies and in leadership more broadly between wanting to pull people along and being paternalistic and doing so, and then secondly, a different sort of notion of leadership which allows for leaders to emerge from within a country. And so I was pleased to hear you come down on the second side of that, as you think about aid not enabling people to lead themselves out of poverty. But I wonder if there's a way for us as those who think about leadership to spread that message more broadly, that leadership isn't about being paternalistic, isn't about a leader from the outside imposing something on his or her people. How do we, throughout the academy even, rid the academy of the notion that we need to have leaders emerge from within?
Wow, that's a very difficult question, but again, very much at the core, certainly of the development debate, but also the core of policy in general. What I would say is certainly in the context of development, there have been a number of initiatives, for example, the Paris Accord or the Accra Accord, where there have been big efforts to try and get those who were tended to lead in the development debate to become very explicitly become more partners with the recipient. So whereas there's been a donor-recipient relationship where the donor has tended to take the lead and the recipient has tended to follow, there have been explicit sort of calls to sort of on paper at least have an arrangement where there's much more partnership involved. I have tended to like the phraseology of leading from the rear, and I think that in a sense that's what we're touching on here is how do you get as a leader, how do you encourage people to do the right thing? How do you encourage people to be part and parcel of different policy debates? And I think academia and the academy have a large role to play in that. And unfortunately, I think they've also been, it's been the case that certainly in development, that it has been perpetuated as a leadership thing. But I think that there's certainly the fact that we're having the conversation and policies moving in that direction, I think there's much more scope for improvement.
What advice would you have for a young student who's in leadership studies who, again, wants to make the world better? Where could that student best put his or her energy going forward?
I guess the thing I would say, just linking on to the last question, I think what's really important and what becomes very difficult as you get older and you leave university is being able to stay true to logic and evidence. The emotion can overwhelm, and very often the challenge is that logic and evidence require that there are going to be lost generations. We've made so many mistakes that we have to remember that there might be some costs that we don't want to see, but the emotions are not going to help solve these situations in a very fundamental way. With respect to what a student or a young person would like to do. I think, again, it comes back to the point of innovation. I think that the world, in fact, I know that the world moves, and especially in a place like the United States, it moves in leaps and bounds precisely because they're innovators. And once again, I think the risk is always for leaders today. They become set in their ways and they stop innovating. And I think you have to push yourself constantly to say, what else can I be doing? How else can I improve? And that's really what I think is most important.
Thanks. That's
Thank you very
fabulous.
much. Thank you.